So here is the unwrapped cacti pot that I coiled up the other day, and it's become now quite firm to touch, so ready for scraping down and smoothing the sides. And I've started to do that. You can see here it's really quite smooth. I've smoothed that out with a kidney, and I've left some of it just smoothed with my finger, and I might leave some of that to sort of replicate and see what it's like to replicate this kind of slightly tooled finish that I did on the original. So I'll let you in on some of that scraping process as I set about finishing off this terracotta version. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to invert it, so tip it upside down, like so, and then I'm going to bring the edge of the piece right to the edge of the board so that I can get right down to the bottom of it with my metal kidney. This is a metal kidney. And then I'm going to just scrape all of those sort of ridges out with my scraping with the flat side of the kidney scraper. And usually you're doing it in a slightly diagonal motion upwards, and that starts to take out all of those ridges. Every now and again cleaning the tool to keep it nice and clear, otherwise you just build up another layer of clay on top of the surface. And then I'm going to move it round to do the next little corner. And it's quite a pleasing part of the process because you start to really see a crispness to the surface. And sometimes I might need to use the curved side where there's a gentle curving inwards. I'm going from top to bottom, just gently, methodically. Moving round. Now where I've got this kind of indent area here, and there's a bit of a curve in towards the bottom, I'm just using the curved side of the kidney to kind of just smooth that in and just exaggerate that little sort of curving inward of the form, just smoothing that gently with the curved side, angling it in different directions. And you'll see that sometimes there's a little bit of a lip forming here from the scraping, so then I want to sort of take that down with the tool again, sort of scraping it back on itself and taking it out again there. And then I'm going to use my sort of finger to just give that a softened edge so it's not sharp. And as you scrape, you sometimes start to identify little dips or recesses, and the best thing to do with those is to fill them with some of the same dryness of clay that you've scraped off and just smooth them in, and that will bring it flush with the rest of the surface. You can just ease it back in with a scraper. And I've now just inverted it back, and this is so that I can neaten up the edge and scrape the wall right up to its rim, and just see how much work I need to do to neaten up the rim. And I do remember learning about rims at college. Very important because that's where your eye leaves the pot or the vessel. So it needs a fair degree of attention. It's the sort of almost one of the very significant lines in a piece of ceramic or pottery. Now on the inside you can see there's a bit of a tooling mark there where I've done an initial scrape, and I think rather than introducing the kidney into that area, which might be a bit tricky and it might scrape the bottom, I'm just going to use my finger, my thumb actually, to smooth out those tooled marks so that it has a similar effect to this one. And if in a way it doesn't need to be overly precise, because this is where the plants are going to sit in here, so you won't really see the edges, but it's nice to finish it in a way that feels sort of holistic, all sides looked after, even though it is going to be under the soil or pebbles or whatever. And I think that is what I did here, because I discovered my initials here in the piece. You can just sort of see them, I think, if I hold it to the light, yeah. So I inlaid a couple of coils there with a full stop to show my initials, even though the thing was going to be planted up. So it's there to discover when you take the plants out. So yeah, it's just a very sort of gentle stroking, slight pressure with the thumb, easing out those grooves. There are so many different parts of our fingers that we use for working with clay, and different sensitivities to pressure and firmness and repetition. Often you're doing the same thing over and over to create a slight change. And also, I'm as comfortable using my left hand as I am with my right hand. I'm usually using my right hand for things, but I'm often using my left hand in pottery in a very similar way to get into different nooks and crannies. And I'm just going to try the same thing on the rim here, just see what it's like using my finger, my thumb. Can also use this, which is called a rubber kidney, so it's the same kidney shape but it's made of rubber, and just gentle stroking with that can also ease out the tooling marks. And you can also use it just on the edge as well to soften that down. Almost you can see a shine developing on the clay there as I do that. And then I can use that rubber kidney on the sides of the piece just to ease out the very final marks that are still there. So you can just see that becoming really smooth from the action of the rubber on the surface, almost burnishing it at the same time, which is rather pleasing. So we're nearly complete now. Just taking it round. And one final sweep round that rim, lightly and gently. And now I've got this little biscuit fired stamp that I made a while ago, which is a kind of a signature stamp. So where this one had some inlaid clay, where this one had the inlaid clay mark here, I'm just going to give it this little stamp in the same sort of position. Pushing it down really firmly. And then you can just see See it there, the J and the E. So I think we're finished there, and I'll have a think about whether I might give it a coating of something and whether I'll be firing it or keeping it as a sketch to work from to take other ideas. But yeah, it might be interesting to fire it and plant it up and see how it compares. Anyway, yeah, so that's the second version of the cacti pot. It will come out, if I did fire it, and in any case drying it, it will shrink quite a bit, 10%, so it'll be smaller than the other one. But yeah, really pleasing revisiting that time and remaking a version of that piece.